Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American body horror film from 2025, titled Control Freak. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie begins with a montage of Valerie, a successful motivational speaker inspiring a crowd. Her speech focuses on overcoming self-doubt and the inner voice that holds people back from reaching their potential. At home, Valerie shares an intimate moment with her husband, Robbie. Later, he gives her a letter from her estranged father, Sang, and the letter is about the anniversary of her mother Chi's death. Although Valerie appears confident in public, she secretly struggles with a compulsive urge to scratch the back of her head, and she relies on medication to manage the itch. While swimming, Valerie has a flashback to a childhood memory of being on a boat with her parents, Sang and Chi. Later, Crystal, Valerie's assistant, informs her that China requires her birth certificate for an upcoming tour. If she doesn't provide it, they may need to cancel or reschedule. However, Valerie refuses to make any changes and assures Crystal that she will bring the certificate. At home, Valerie considers calling Sang to ask about her birth certificate but drops the idea immediately. That night, she searches online for possible causes of her uncontrollable itching, hoping to find answers. Instead, the information she finds only heightens her anxiety and fear. The next day, while meditating, Valerie experiences a disturbing sensation of multiple hands pulling her in, and suddenly, she feels the presence of a dark hand. Snapping out of her meditation, she looks down and sees a single black ant crawling on her pants. Soon, Valerie begins experiencing strange visions. She notices swarms of ants crawling out of a hole in the wall. In need of her birth certificate, Valerie visits her Aunt Twee at the nail salon she owns. Since moving out of her parents' house, Valerie left several boxes at the salon, hoping to find the document among them. As she searches, she realizes that one of the boxes is missing, and Twee explains that her father, a former soldier who is now a monk, has the family mementos she is looking for. At home, Robbie notices that Valerie seems worried and tries to comfort her, assuring her that they will have a baby soon. However, Valerie is more concerned about her upcoming tour. When she starts itching again, Robbie suggests she see a doctor, but Valerie dismisses it, insisting it's nothing serious. Later, while working in her lab, Valerie feels the itch returning, and desperate for relief, she uses a ruler to scratch the spot but presses too hard, making it bleed. The next morning, she consults a doctor via phone, who explains that her compulsive scratching may have a psychological cause and that such conditions can sometimes be hereditary. With a heavy heart, Valerie visits Sang at the monastery and asks about the missing box. While in his room, she notices a painting of a demon called Sancher and asks about it. Sang explains that Sancher refers to a parasitic ghost that infects its human host with uncontrollable urges, slowly consuming their body and soul. Suddenly, Valerie begins to feel lightheaded, and Sang steps out to get her some water.
No, it's okay, I'm fine.
As she regains her composure, she searches the drawers and finds a key to a storage room. Without waiting for Sang to return, she quickly leaves the monastery and drives straight to the storage facility. Arriving at the facility, Valerie removes the bandage from her head and notices blood on it. Curious, she uses her phone's camera to check the back of her head, and is horrified to discover an open wound on her scalp. Inside the storage unit, she finds one of the drawers locked, but she manages to locate her birth certificate in another. She also comes across an old photo album, and just as she prepares to leave, Valerie hears the sound of a woman crying from one of the lockers. Concerned, she moves closer to investigate, but she is suddenly hit with another terrifying vision: swarms of ants crawling around her. At home, Valerie tries to take control of her life by following the same advice she gives others, and while in her lab, the old photo album suddenly falls from the shelf. As she flips through it, she notices something unsettling. She comes across a picture of Chi, revealing bruises on her mother's arms. During dinner, Robbie tries to comfort Valerie, insisting that whatever happened to her mother was an accident and that no one was to blame. But Valerie refuses to see herself as a victim, and the conversation turns into an argument, and upset, she decides to sleep on the couch. That night, as she sleeps, an ant crawls into her mouth, making her choke. Panic sets in as she suddenly starts coughing up swarms of ants, spilling from her mouth, but it turns out to be a nightmare. Later, Valerie visits Twee in demand to know what really happened to her mother. Twee hesitates at first but finally reveals that after the war, she had been cursed, and despite all her efforts, Twee couldn't save her. She then gives Valerie a chilling warning: she must stay away from her father. Meanwhile, at the monastery, Sang performs a ritual with Sancher. As he murmurs ominously, he whispers, "There is no escape." During the photo shoots for the tour, Valerie starts hallucinating that a hand is taking control of her, making her itch. Panicked, she rushes to the washroom to regain her composure. As she returns to the studio, she overhears Robbie telling Crystal that he is worried something is wrong with her. That night, wanting to make up for what happened earlier, Valerie initiates intimacy with Robbie. However, as things escalate, something takes over her body and without meaning to, she digs her nails into his body, hurting him. When Robbie touches her head, he pulls his hand back and sees blood on his palm. After washing the blood off, he confronts Valerie, which spirals into another fight. Desperate to stop herself from scratching, Valerie ties her hands using a restraint device, hoping to suppress the uncontrollable urge. Meanwhile, Robbie makes a shocking discovery: Valerie has been secretly taking birth control pills despite their supposed commitment to having a baby, and feeling betrayed, he decides to leave the house. That night, as Valerie sleeps, something sinister takes control of her body. Her own hand moves against her will, violently scratching at her wound. Glancing toward the foot of her bed, she sees shadowy figures watching her. However, it turns out to be another nightmare. The next morning, assuming Robbie is on the couch, Valerie speaks to him and apologizes, admitting she wasn't herself last night. However, she finds the couch empty, and her heart sinks when she spots the birth control pills, left out in the open, proof that Robbie discovered them before he left. Valerie frantically calls Robbie to explain, but he doesn't answer, and frustrated, something builds inside her. Suddenly, she starts breaking apart the wall, and just then, Sang arrives. He calmly sits with Valerie and offers her tea, and as they drink, Sang tells her the truth: she is infected with Sancher, just like her mother was. He warns that the parasitic spirit is consuming her, feeding on her urges, but Valerie refuses to accept his explanation. Instead, she lashes out, blaming him for her mother's death, and suddenly, she starts feeling lightheaded. Her vision blurs, and a horrifying realization dawns: Sang has drugged her tea. He reaches into her purse, takes money, and warns Valerie that she will end up like her mother before leaving. As the drug takes hold, Valerie begins slipping into fragmented memories from her childhood, blurring with hallucinations of the storage room. Driven by an intense need for answers, she rushes back to the storage facility, and once inside, she breaks the lock on a drawer and retrieves a file. At home, she flips through it, finding old newspaper articles. One headline catches her eye: it reveals that Sang was cleared of murder charges. Suddenly, her attention is drawn upstairs where she notices water leaking into her house. Standing by a window watching the rain pour outside, a buried memory resurfaces. As a child, she witnessed Sang drowning Chi. Shaken by the revelation, Valerie grips a knife and heads to the monastery to confront her father. When she arrives, she holds up a small vial, the same drug she found in Sang's drawer earlier, blackmailing him to confess, and if he refuses, she threatens to take the drugs to the abbot. Sang confesses that during the Vietnam War, his actions unintentionally summoned a demon, Sancher. He passed the Sancher to Chi, and the more they hurt themselves, the more it grew. He explains that Sancher can only be destroyed by drowning, and when Chi became fully possessed, she tried to drown Valerie to stop the spirit from infecting her. To save his daughter, Sang had no choice but to drown Chi, and despite his explanation, Valerie refuses to believe him. At home, she receives a call from Crystal, reminding her about her upcoming speaking engagement. Pushing everything aside, she rushes to the theater, determined to focus on her work. Backstage, Valerie spots Robbie and desperately tries to reconcile with him. But Robbie, who is still hurt, tells her he doesn't believe anything she says anymore. During her presentation, Valerie's usual confidence begins to crack, and her compulsive scratching escalates into violent contortions. Then, in the mirror she sees Sancher, and the demon seizes her, twisting her body in unnatural ways. The audience watches in stunned confusion as Valerie, who is overtaken by the entity, abruptly flees the stage. She drives straight to the monastery to tell Sang that she now believes him, but she finds him dead. Valerie touches the back of her head and feels a strange white substance oozing from the wound. Desperate to relieve the pain, she pokes at the hole in her skull, and the next thing she knows, she is in the hospital. Robbie struggles to comprehend how someone could scratch deep enough to reach their skull, and the doctor explains that Valerie has significant damage to the left hemisphere of her brain. If her cranial tissue had softened, it might have allowed her to penetrate the parietal bone. Even in the hospital, Valerie continues to hallucinate Sancher, and its presence is haunting her. After she is discharged, Robbie brings her home and ties her hands at night to prevent further harm. But when they wake up the next morning, a pair of scissors is lying beside her, making Robbie furious. Valerie tries to explain that she believes her father put something inside her, but Robbie refuses to listen. Later, Valerie overhears Robbie speaking privately with the doctor about her mental health, and she decides to take matters into her own hands. That night, she prepares a warm meal for Robbie, acting calm and affectionate as he eats. Before he can finish the meal, Robbie suddenly collapses. Valerie has drugged his soup. She ties him to the bed and reassures him that she is going to make everything right again. Then, she plays a recording of one of her motivational speeches before leaving the room. Valerie sets up a ritual space filled with mirrors, determined to confront Sancher once and for all. As she begins the ritual, she calls out to the demon, demanding to know what it wants. Sancher materializes and tells Valerie that it doesn't just want a part of her, it wants all of her, and not just her, but her entire family. As the unbearable itch returns, Valerie is tormented by a twisted doppelganger of herself, mocking her and whispering that no one would miss her if she were gone. Desperate to end the suffering and to stop herself from scratching, she grabs an electric saw and amputates her right hand. From the other room, Robbie hears the piercing sound of the machine and struggles desperately to free himself from the bed. Sancher materializes once again, and a weakened Valerie asks for help cutting off her other wrist. However, she uses the opportunity to forcibly saw off the demon's hand before continuing to hack at the creature. For a moment, it seems like Valerie has destroyed Sancher, but the demon quickly regenerates and lunges toward her, and with no other option, Valerie stumbles outside to her swimming pool. At the pool, Sancher begins taunting her, whispering that she can never escape. However, Valerie refuses to give up and grabs the demon before pulling it into the water with her. As they sink, Valerie suddenly understands that Sancher is nothing more than a parasite feeding off her mind, exploiting her as an easy host. The demon takes on the appearances of her father, mother, and a younger version of herself. Realizing what she must do, Valerie grabs her younger self and begins swimming toward the surface. Back in the house, having escaped his restraints, Robbie manages to pull his wife out of the water. He sees Valerie cradling an infant with a hole in its head, whom she identifies as her younger self. Before his eyes, the infant melts away, and at the same time, Sanchi's shadowy form disappears as well. A few weeks later, Valerie tells Robbie that he doesn't have to stay with her out of obligation, but then she reveals that she is pregnant. She admits she doesn't fully understand what happened to her or why, but she knows one thing for certain: she wants to be a parent, and she wants Robbie by her side. Years later, Valerie is seen by a lake with her son, and her severed hand has been fixed, likely through surgery. The movie concludes as an ant crawls on her son's face, hinting that Sanchi's curse may still persist and that the cycle isn't completely broken. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Control Freak from 2025. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.